Historically, government assassinations are often carried out with a patsy to take the fall and a professional or team of professionals to execute the target. This ensures success and gives the appearance that there was no conspiracy. It all gets blamed on a mentally disturbed lone gunman. But the alleged would-be Trump assassin was willing to go on a suicide mission. It was an easy shot, and he had at least 5 years of marksmanship training. The independent work of Asget Industries shows how our young suicide assassin could have been the lone gunman. But she is restricted to using the limited information we have gotten. According to the sound analysis of Mike Adams, there were at least 3 shooters.
I think round 1 is probably Crooks. Round 2 is Crooks. Round 3 is Crooks. I think these 3 rounds are Crooks. It's my guess. Rounds 4 and 5 are from the same distance as Crooks, but they are not Crooks. I think rounds 4 and 5, right here. I think rounds 4 and 5 are from a rogue Secret Service team in the building that Crooks was on top of. So that's my guess. Round 6 is from medium-range sniper. Round 7 is long-range sniper.
Several witnesses that day claimed that there was a second shooter in the water tower.
And I just screamed, it's the sniper, and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
Fox News live streamed the following testimony, but omitted it from final edits.
The fence where the other shooter was, there was one I heard in the water tower, there was one by the fence. And still, obviously, initial reports.
NBC live streamed the following testimony of a woman who was in the front row.
He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
And omitted the following from the final edit.
Now they feel that there was 2 shooters on both sides. So they got the one on the tower on this side, but the one on the right side they never got. So that's why they wanted us to leave immediately, because they thought there's still a shooter out there somewhere. I'm glad that guy's no longer with us anymore in that tower. And I hope they get the other one too.
Images of the water tower show a shadow at the very top. Frame-by-frame analysis shows what could be described as muzzle flash, or the reflection of a scope lens. Before any shots were fired, police were seen running towards the water tower.
Oh wow, where are they running to?
Multiple shooters makes more sense, but then how did they miss? Many are insisting that it was a staged event to inflame Trump's popularity.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected, and presidential candidate. We knew almost nothing. Why? Why don't we know that much? We don't know why for 9 full seconds Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up during an active shooter situation, even though they, at that point, had said the shooter was down. How would they have known if there were more shooters or not? Nobody knew that there could have been 5 shooters for all they knew. Yet they allowed him to stand up in the middle of that, crisis and pose for a photo and fist pump the air so he could get the iconic photo. And then they allowed him to stand up again outside of the SUV instead of just shoving him into the SUV. That seems really unusual. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now?
If it was fake, it was a flawless performance. And if it was authentic, it was not only sloppy, it was a millimeter away from chaos. Either way, Trump is now seen by many religious people as being ordained by God, and by others as being the Antichrist, who believers have been expecting to survive an assassination attempt. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
The punchline here is if there's a round traveling along that back row of bleachers that takes out the guy in the white shorts and the white shirt and hits the railing, that's 2 points on a line. I've got a line. Guess where the line points? You're going to get goosebumps. Let's pull up the diagram. New crime scene infographic. Can you guys pull that up? New crime scene infographic. The line of people that just got shot in the back row of the bleachers, if we follow that round backwards, where did it come from? That's the round that just missed the snipers on the roof. You see the snipers jump backwards. They jump backwards. They reposition. The guy on the right is ducking in the fetal position. They're taking fire. The first shot is at the snipers, and they miss. And you see the sniper jumps back, moves his gun back. That shot that missed the sniper is that red line you see in this diagram. That shot misses them and goes right down the back row of the bleachers.
Where do you suppose this shot is coming from? Because it would have to be on a downward angle.
It's on a semi-downward angle, and this is the uncomfortable part of all this, is that shot is coming from the woods. It's coming from a tree.
While other networks lie to you about what's happening now, InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next.
This is the letter today that came out. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, and his tweet today was that, look, whistleblowers come out. These were not even Secret Service agents. I write to raise concern brought to me by whistleblowers about your department's stunning failure to protect former President Donald J. Trump on July 13, 2024. As Secretary of Homeland Security, you are ultimately responsible for your agency and its components, including the U.S. Secret Service. He goes on to say that, in addition, whistleblowers' allegations suggest the majority, look at that, the majority of DHS officials were not, in fact, United States Secret Service agents, but instead drawn from the department's Homeland Security investigations. This is especially concerning given the HSI agents were unfamiliar with standard protocols typically used at these types of events, according to allegations. This, again, is from U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, and he's even put it out on his X account today, right there. Wow. Let's start with that before we go to analysis of the shots that show there may have been more than one shooter. What do you make of this coming out today, July 19th, by Senator Josh Hawley? It's going to be interesting to watch these hearings. If these hearings go down, these are going to be highly rated hearings.
Well, it's interesting that the Secret Service turns out to be about as competent at defending the president as they are at assassinating him. They clearly were involved. I mean, that's so obvious. It's as obvious as the noonday sun.
And you said that 2 days ago. You said, I'm done discussing this. This is what you said. I'm done discussing it. The Secret Service was responsible for this. They were involved in this, and it's now up to them to prove they weren't.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's clear as day. And also, there was a lot of foreshadowing, of course, with the financial transactions that happened in advance, with the puts and that sort of thing. Clearly, people knew something was about to happen because moves were made.
And then you add in your photographer. You know, we're not accusing that guy of anything, but you came on here 2 nights ago or so and said, "Isn't it weird that dude had his camera set like you would do a close-up?"
Let me tell you how familiar I am with that camera that he used. This is it. It's the exact same camera. This is a Sony Alpha 1, right? It's the best camera I ever had. I did a tremendous amount of combat photography. Years, right? And so, you know, when I saw that bullet trace, if that's actually what it was, if that was not some sort of Photoshop, which it could have been, I don't know, no allegations, but we know that the New York Times is famous for fraud. So let's put it like this. This is what we really see with that bullet trace photo. We see a photo, let's say an image, it's actually an image. We see an image with a white streak on it from an organization that is famous for fraud, right? So now it's up to them to prove that that is legit. The 1/8,000th of a second, having that, on already in advance is kind of strange. And it's very strange. I went on with Brett Weinstein yesterday. He called me up yesterday. We went into the Darien Gap together, and he's quite a photographer. And guess what? He used the same Sony A1, and we were out down there shooting together photography, both with our A1s. So we're both familiar with that camera. So he's a very good photographer, Brett is. So he was surprised by the 1/8,000th of a second on the shutter speed as well. And so we just did, almost 2 hours yesterday on Dark Horse. It'll air on the 27th of July, I think. That's what they told me. And so, we talked about this in great detail for almost 2 hours. And it was just quite strange. That I think the photographer, to make sure that everybody knows that everything's legit at the New York Times, not the photographer, the New York Times that he works for, needs to release the raw photos. The raw, almost certainly he shot in raw. It would be kind of hard to imagine he was shooting in JPEG. He almost certainly shot in raw. That would be like 99% chance. They should release the raw photos, because if there was any Photoshop done, then you can detect it with those raw photos.
All right. For the sake of time, I got a lot of stuff to move through. Let's go to the next one very quickly. Here is a guy, I don't know if you know him or not. His name is Matt Tarito. His bio says that he is the host of Speak the Truth podcast, keynote speaker, former Green Beret. So again, I'm just telling you what's out there. Tell me what you think about this little presentation by him. Here we go.
This got more weird for the President Trump assassination attempt. Right down here below is a transmitter, and we're about to talk about why that is a huge flippin' deal. For those that don't know, my name is Matt Torrio. I'm a retired Green Beret and prior law enforcement officer, and I happen to be an explosives expert on top of all that. So what does that transmitter have to do with the explosives found inside the vehicle, and what does it tell us about the suspect? So obviously he presses a series of buttons on the transmitter, which then goes towards the receiver. It then sends out an electrical impulse, which then runs through the charge and detonates it. Now that electrical impulse that's sent out by the receiver, or in this case, we're gonna call it the switch, is not enough to set off the main charge. That, my friends, is why electric blasting caps exist. Now, if that's the case, and he actually had his explosive devices rigged up to an electric blasting cap, he could have acquired them one of two ways. The first way is he could have made them. Precursors are readily available at numerous places here inside of the United States, and truthfully, I've even had them sent to my front door off of Amazon. Now, he could have taken those precursors and mixed his own explosives out of it and made his own electric blasting cap. Only problem is, in order to do that, it requires a very precise formula, and it's highly volatile when you're making and drying it. Then he would have to pack the cap without blowing himself up, and so on and so forth. Manufactured caps are very closely tracked, so I highly doubt he got his hands on one of those. Now, the suspect is 20 years old, and last I checked, he does not exactly have an extensive background in chemistry. He'd also have to have a location to dry out the explosives after he manufactured them. And by the way, I want you to picture like a Breaking Bad laboratory. It doesn't have to be that extensive, but a lot of the same materials you see used in Breaking Bad to manufacture the meth is the same thing that he would be using in order to manufacture the explosives. It's chemistry. His parents would have seen that, they would have smelt it, they would have noticed. He lives at home, so he'd have to have a storage facility or somewhere else in order to make it. But again, it goes back into how the hell did the kid not blow himself up doing it, because the temperatures have to be very exact, and if it gets too hot, you can frickin' cause a whole thing to detonate right there on the spot. A lot of people are speculating and saying that because he doesn't have a social media profile, it's kind of weird. But I want you to look at it from a foreign actor's perspective. If you are going to be training somebody and giving them the means in order to do what this gentleman did, would you want them to have a social media platform? The answer is no, because all they have to do is make one dumb comment and the whole thing is going to get tipped off to law enforcement. So you would want to recruit somebody like him who has been picked on in school, likely has a couple mental issues, but also has no real social media presence, and likely gets his interactions online through different platforms like, I don't know, say 4chan or Reddit. Once they've got him recruited, then they just need to talk to him.
once they're talking to him, either through, emails, private messaging, whatever, right? There's a million different ways to do it. They don't even have to meet up with the guy. They can just give him a series of tasks, and then once he completes those tasks and they know he's good to go, then they can start dead dropping him the different things that he needed in order to conduct this attack. This whole thing looks shady as hell.
All right, let's just stop it right there. Indeed, it does look shady, that's for sure. Comments on that before we go to the next video.
Oh, yeah. I mean, shady is an understatement. He's exactly right. Insofar as the explosives go, I don't know what the explosives were involved. I don't know if it was gunpowder, in which case you don't need blasting caps, or if it was something like C4. I have no idea. It would be highly unlikely it was something like C4. It would probably more along the lines of HME. But then again, we're talking about information that's coming from the government, which is absolutely not credible. I mean, they're about as credible as the New York Times, right? Which is basically the same thing. So, were there any explosives? I don't know. The government, we can't trust them. We always have to go back to, we can't trust them. So, and again, same with the New York Times. Why would I be, demanding, the raw files from New York Times? I haven't demanded it directly, just in public. Why? Because they have a history of fraud. It's a mile deep. And that's why I canceled my subscription to them years ago. It was because of the Jason Blair incident. It was more of a series of major frauds by a journalist there who was a race hire. He was hired because he was a black journalist. Turned out to be a crack addict, and he was making fraudulent stories, massive, which defrauds the actual subscribers as well. And the two top editors knew about it and continued to let him do it. So that was when I canceled my subscription and never went back. That was many years ago. So, again, so we can't trust anything from the government. What does appear, I think the videos that you showed from this retired Green Beret, I think he's right on target. I mean, this kid was almost certainly recruited. And it's kind of obvious. The question is, who did it? And they're also doing these sorts of things on an industrial scale. The recruitment of patsies is a long process. That was actually it was this sort of thing in the Afghan war in 2006. The reason why, one of many reasons why I said that I thought that the Afghan war was picking up in 2006. It was very controversial at the time because many people thought we had won that war. But in 2006, I was in Lashkar. I was not with the military. I was with an old Green Beret friend, actually. And we drove away from one of the PRTs there, Provincial Reconstruction Team, and boom, a suicide car bomb went off at the PRT. And it missed us, but it was, big. So about a week later, we were back there, and boom, another one, right? So in Lashkar,
which is
that was two.
Right?
So
yep.
What's that?
Yeah, no, keep going. Sorry.
So that was two within about a week. Now, that told me, one is not a pattern, but in that area, there hadn't been suicide attacks yet. In fact, in Afghanistan, suicide attacks were quite rare. But we just had two back-to-back in an area where they'd never had them before. So keep in mind, I was coming into this with significant war experience already, and so that told me somebody's got a suicide attack or factory going on. It turned out there were two mosques over in Pakistan across the border, probably others, that, they would select, just as this retired Green Beret said, I'm sorry, I missed his name, but they would recruit those based on whatever their selection criteria were, and then they would groom them, and then often they would sell them to somebody who needs a suicide attacker, right? And so when they show up, they marry that trained dog basically up with here's your car and here's your target. They don't even know anything about it until the last minute. Actually, one of the ways we used to spot suicide attackers was, and it was SOP, things to watch for were, do they look like they're lost? Because most of the suicide bombers are from somewhere else, even a foreign country. Whether that be, when we were in Iraq or Afghanistan, often the suicide bombers were from places like Tunisia, and so they came over to do other things. Next thing you know, they're a suicide bomber and they're lost. They're driving their car around and we're like, hey, that guy's, going around the block again. Stop him, and he's trying to get to his target.
Yep. All right. For the sake of time, let me play something. Dr. Chris Martenson is putting out there. Let's play a little of this and get your response. This is pretty fascinating.
I'm coming to you today with rock-solid audio proof that there were at least 2 shooters shooting at Trump and the crowd, and therefore the official story of a lone gunman is completely wrong. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity. This is Explosive. I'm actually nervous to bring this to you because, well, we know how much the deep state, the state, whatever's going on, does not like having its narratives punctured. But obviously, there's a lot wrong with the Trump shooting. I'm going to show you rock-solid evidence today, and I'm making this public. I've been chewing on this for a while. I don't have the complete analysis yet. We're going to need more people to weigh in on this, but let me show you what I've got. So we're going to start here. This is day 3 of the cover-up, as we're calling it. And by the way, this is July 18th. I'm going to dedicate this to my brother, John Peter Martenson. He died when he was 23, just a hole ripped out of my heart, and today's his birthday. So I have to make mention of that. So it's for you, John. I know he would have admired this work, and I'm doing this for you, and that's why I'm going to be proud and loud about this. There were 2 shooters, so let's reorient ourselves with the scene again. Let me get my drawing tool out, or my pointing tool. Okay, so first up, they tell us that the shooter was here. This is very accurately located on the roof off of the drain pipe, as we covered before. I'll show you that one more time. I just want to make sure we're all sharing the same orientation because this is important, right? And we have 2 victims here. Comparator, who died, another guy who was very severely injured. He has life-altering injuries. And then another gentleman back here in the upper right part of the stand. I'm going to show you all this evidence, okay? So first up, we need to know where all the shots went, right? And I'm going to show you that the first 3 shots came from a very different weapon in a different location than the next string of shots that came out. It's either 5 or 6, depending on how you count. But you decide, listen, it couldn't be more clear how different they are. This is the picture from on the roof of, Crooks lying here dead. There's a little blood trailing down back here, but this allows us to locate him on the roof very, very accurately because of the raised seam metal roof. And now the story is that there's actually, you can't see it in this photo, but there's a 5-foot ladder here. Apparently he came up, would have come across, would have jumped down onto here, would have come up. Maybe that explains why his backpack, if that's what that is left there. Came over to here. Apparently some other cop would have been lifted up and looked over roofline. I don't know what that is. Now, even in CNN a while ago, this is from CNN, so I'm saying even because these guys are deep state sort of aligned. Operation Mockingbird. They don't print stuff unless it's pre-approved. So somebody allowed this information to come out, and they said here that the first 3 shots were consistent with weapon A, and the next 5 consistent with alleged weapon B, and the final acoustic impulse emitted by a third possible weapon C. I believe that's true, and weapon C is the sniper taking out Crooks, I think. Best guess. I'll give you my big hypothesis at the end. So this was confirmed. This is per audio analysis by Catalin Gregores, director of the National Center for Media Forensics at the University of Colorado in Denver. So I'm sure that her and Cole Whitecotton, a senior professional research associate, they have much better access to much better analysis software and all of that. All I need to get out to you today is something that seems to be missing from the dialogue, and they're trying to run forward with this lone shooter junk, which of course is straight from their playbook. That's how they did it. That's what they did with JFK. They lied about that. That's what they did with RFK. They lied about that. So this is standard from the playbook kind of stuff. Lone nut with a mysterious motive we can't unravel. We're here to unravel all of that, okay? Rock solid, absolutely conclusive, and this is the best part about being alive today. We don't have to wait for 30, 40 years for a Zapruder film and people to sort of analyze it. We're doing this in real time and figuring this out as it's unfolding, and that is the absolute benefit of living in today's world with all these cell phones and cameras. Much harder to get away with really sloppy operations. And this was a sloppy operation because they missed their man, whoever was involved in this. But I can guarantee you that the information I'm presenting to you, they also have. But somehow they're hiding it, which of course is par for the course with these particular crew of people. Okay, and they said audio analysis has confirmed the gunman was 360 to 390 feet, 3 feet away. Okay, according to another forensic expert, Robert Mayer. Yeah, we all end up in the same ballpark. I end up a little closer to 430 feet, but doesn't matter. All within the realm of analytical wiggle room. Okay, so we're going to analyze two separate audio streams today. This is the first one. This is taken from a microphone right in front of the podium. So you're going to hear two things, of course. You're going to hear a snap. Sounds very sharp sound. That's the supersonic crack of the bullet flying within, sending its supersonic shockwave to the microphone. Microphone picks it up like that. And then there's the report of the gun, which follows a little later. Sounds like an echo, so it goes crack thump, crack thump. The crack thump is a well-known tool that snipers would use to estimate how far away somebody is that's shooting them. If there's a very long distance between the crack and the thump, that your shooter's very far away because the bullet flies faster than the speed of sound. So the sound is the explosion of the gun. Boom! That starts traveling towards, the victim down there or whoever's downrange. But the bullet gets there first. And it gets there at supersonic velocity, which means faster than 1,100 feet per second, give or take the altitude and conditions. So if anything's traveling faster than the speed of sound, it has a sonic boom, crack, right? So that's what we're going to hear. You're going to hear first in this tape, you're going to hear 3 very clearly distinct crack thumps. And then things get a little confusing, right? It gets a little fast. And so how do you count and all of that? Whoever put this video together did the counting. Thank you for that. However, I think there's some room for interpretation here as well about that. So without any further ado, this is that
Take
audio
a look at what
we're
happened.
analyzing. Wait. Hang on. I'm going to hear one more. There it was. There's that last one. Okay, one more time.
Take a look at what happened.
Listen to this. Can you hear that? That's 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then hard to unravel what's happening there because we have echoes. We've got them overstacking each other, so there's 2 supersonic cracks that come in, and later the thumps of the gun come in, the crack thumps. So it gets a little tricky to unravel, so let's do that and go there. Okay, first up, I want a big shout-out to Mike Adams at Health Ranger. He was out with this within minutes for those first 3 shots. Clued me in to the idea that we really did need to take a look at the other one, so way to go, Mike. Thank you for picking that up and doing that. All right. This is the audio file. I pulled it into a program called Audacity, right, off of that video. And I find on here 9 separate shots, okay? So I find 3, then a grouping of 5, and then one last one out there. Number 9, I think, this is the sniper shot that would have, I think, looks like it took out Crooks just above the left eyebrow. If you want to go look at those, or, the gross pictures, right? Obviously, he's all bloody and dead. They have that close-up picture of his face, right? And you can actually see a hole right about here over the left eyebrow. So we have those first 3 shots, then we have the 5, and then that last one. I'm not going to worry about the last one as much, but we're going to have to look at these first sets very, very carefully here. So here is video number 1. Just to orient ourselves, I count off of this video 15.8 seconds from the very first to the very last shot. So the AP article that said, Crooks took a shot and was neutralized by snipers within seconds, what they meant was 15.8 seconds, unless I have this story wrong. Next, we're going to look at these first 3 shots here so you understand how we can analyze the rest of them. And so here's the shot. This is the sonic crack. So that's the bullet, is the blue arrows, and then the report is going to be the black arrows. So that's the crack thump, crack thump, crack thump. And of course, it was the first bullet that nicked Trump's ear. And again, let me get my thing here. Here's what it sounds like. Okay, so now I've just isolated the sound. There it is. Okay, whoops, sorry. One last time just to make sure we're hearing this right. There's 0.22 seconds between the crack and the thump, and knowing a little bit about the type of the bullet that was used and the caliber of it and the air conditions and things like that, you can estimate the distance of the shooter and how far away the shooter was. So that 0.22 second gap between the crack and the thump is very important because it helps us identify that a gun is being shot from that distance. If there were any other lengths, like if we saw a crack thump, crack thump, crack thump, we would clearly see that that was 2 separate weapons because assuming the first and the last cracked thumps were the same distance apart. So if there's any variation between the crack and the thump, that's when you say, oh, that's a different weapon. So that's one way. The other way is just the tenor, just the sound of the weapon. Does it sound different? Now, this is interesting. This woman here had put up a video on TikTok. I really wish we could get the unaltered, I call it unmolested. I don't need all the words put on there. And it's not a consistent video, so there's edits in there. So I can't, if it ran from beginning to end, we could tell more, but I'm suspecting that we can tell a lot from it. So we're going to bring it up here because this is one of the videos, only videos that I know about that shows, I think, the first stand victim getting shot. So here we go.
Side of Trump. I'm over on the far right or far left of Trump. These are the same bleachers. Watch the top left. These are the same exact bleachers. These are to the left of Trump.
See that?
Those shots.
Okay. What I've done here is, so I just want us to look at, I just pulled out that one tiny section. You can clearly see a bullet careening off of this railing up here, and it does it with enough force to atomize and vaporize. And so I think this is an important clue. We'll see. So let's just look at that over and over again. Pew! Did you see that? Again. Pew! See that? Okay, oops. One more time. And again. So you can clearly see this shot happening. Now, this gentleman who's right, and get my laser pointer back, this gentleman right here is in a very, very distinctive American flag shirt of some kind. You can see him hunch over there a little bit, and I'm pretty sure that that shot that you see careening off the rail struck him first. And the reason I think that struck him first, because we showed this before, is from this video that's after the fact. We're on the right side of the stands. You can see he's being brought down. And you can see here, he's holding, get my laser pointer back. He's holding his right chest, holding that, right? With his left arm is coming over. So his right chest, I don't know the extent of his injuries. I can't find any updates in the media right now, so we're going to be watching out for that. But if he was struck in that upper right chest and the bullet still managed to take something off of the railing into a puff, we see a very clear puff there. I don't think that's a .223 round. .223 round, a little 55 or a 62 grain bullet. When they hit, they tend to tumble. This would have to have had enough force to have nicked Trump's ear, if I'm right about this being the first shot, nicked his ear, traveled in, struck this gentleman, and still had enough force to vaporize either the railing or that was the bullet itself atomizing. That was what that gray puff was. More likely that's a larger caliber round, but that's a guess, pure hypothesis, pure conjecture. I'm just throwing it out there as a placeholder, but that would be more consistent with something, say, in a 308, some 30 caliber sort of a round, something with enough energy to penetrate and still atomize and vaporize on the back railing. But again, just a guess. Doesn't matter, just speculation. It's kind of irrelevant. But again, if we're back here, again so I think you can see that puff right there. See that? Oops, sorry. And puff. 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 So he's been hit, and also it's on his right side. So, and if you see how he's oriented, he's all the way up against the back with his right side tipped towards the back. So this is as high up as you can get. Now, the other thing I need to point out about that is he is all the way in the highest row of bleacher seats. Those things start roughly at about stage level, which is about 3.5, 4 feet in the air, and then they go up level. So if you said it's, I don't know, a foot or foot and a half per level, he's clearly many feet up in the air, and he's standing. So that bullet that struck him has to be, I don't know, pick a number, 12, 15 feet in the air. Pretty high up, and that's going to become important again in just a second. All right, so this is plausible for the first shot then, okay? We see here if the shots came from the rooftop shooter first, then comes across the podium. Trump would have been standing right about there and could have struck somebody standing in the back right where that gentleman was with the flag shirt who got hit. So that's entirely plausible, but except it's a little bit more consistent with a rising shot, because if we put the podium at about 3.5 feet, 4, let's call it 4, we'll put Trump at 6'3", but take 3 inches off, so 10 feet. 10 feet, that bullet goes whizzing by his ear. But if this is why we need all the trajectories, that's why we need all this mapped out, that's why we need an absolute accounting of every single shot taken. If that was the first shot that struck that gentleman, okay? And that's why if I had that unmolested video and I could piece it in, I could tell you exactly. So hold this as just a bunch of conjecture until we have more. But if that gentleman was struck by the same bullet that took Trump's ear, that means that thing must have been on a rising trajectory, because Trump's at 10 feet. And then further back, this guy, his chest is probably at 13, 14 feet. It's higher in the air. That would have been more consistent with a shot fired from lower down that was then rising instead of a shot fired from the roof, which would have been declining and coming down. I'm giving you this because this is going to be in a few slides. You're going to see why I'm making a point about this. Okay, so the audio from video 1, when we look at it here, the first 3 shots we can make complete sense of. Okay, fine. Then there's a 4th shot that arrives, and it does so with the bullet and a report at 0.212 seconds, close enough for government work here, or rough analysis. Here's another bullet and a report, so that's the snap, crack. There's echoes. We see there's echoes, so the bullet makes a and then this sound is echoing, probably off of one of the buildings. We have a lot of flat surfaces back there. So the microphone is here, supersonic crack, and the crack makes it to the microphone, and then it echoes off of something. And so we see the crack and an echo. We could probably very, very accurately estimate how far away that flat surface is off of that echo, and then you get the report itself. Crack, thump, crack, thump. So shots 4 and 5, I'm still pretty good with shots 4 and 5 in terms of being able to make sense of them. From 6 on, man, it gets all kinds of weird. And I'm not going to take you through the weirdness from video 1. To try and resolve what's happening with those other shots, we're now going to turn to video 2. This really clarifies everything and makes the entire case. So we'll listen to it up through the shots, which is about 20 seconds of tape. Yeah, I won't take you through all the screaming and everything. And by the way, not for nothing, but screaming, I don't understand people who just start screaming and then just don't stop in an event like this. So listen past this. It's there's a lot of screaming going on, but you can clearly hear shots 1, 2, and 3, and then you can hear the other string of shots come out. We're going to analyze it. I'll break it down. We'll take a look at it. However, I do want to pre-stage this a little bit, and for yourself, decide for yourself, does 1, 2, and 3, do they sound the same at all compared to the other ones that you hear? Okay, and remember, we already have the analysis from audio experts elsewhere saying there's a difference between weapon A and weapon B. And I can show you that the rounds fired from weapon B were also aimed at the stage. Okay, so this is important. 2 weapons, one fires a string of 3, another fires a string of 5 or 6, depending on how we count, and off they go. And they were also out hitting the crowd and headed towards Trump. Okay, this is important because now we do not have a lone gunman anymore. Okay, so listen up. Here we go. And then that one more. That's the 6 I'm unclear on. Let's listen to this again. Muffled, and then right? That's what I hear. And a lot of screaming. Okay, so let's analyze this now. Let's go into this with a little bit more depth. So video 2, the way I score it, there's about 16.0 seconds from first to last shot, so very consistent with what we're experiencing on the first audio, so that's nice. They kind of line up pretty well. And here's the whole audio from all that screaming and the shots from video 2. We have in blue the first 3 shots here. We have more shots here from a second weapon. I'm not sure about this one. It has a very different sound, that we heard, and here's the final last shot, which I believe is from, oops, sorry, don't have my thing. You don't know what I'm pointing at. This is the 5 that make a very distinct sound. Here's one with a very different crack in it. That's the 6th shot in the string. And then here we have the final last one, which I think is the sniper weapon, which is probably the one that put the bullet just over the left eye of Crooks on the roof. So we're going to take a closer look at the blue, the red, the blacks here and listen to these things. But once again, let's just listen very carefully, and we'll go back and forth until you're certain of this yourself. Here's just the first 3 shots from that video. I haven't done anything, no audio, I haven't done any enhancements. This is both of these video audio pieces are exactly pulled straight from the video itself. Nothing else. I haven't boosted any, I haven't done any filtering, raw files, okay? So, and by the way, every instinct in me was to try and minimize all the screaming, but I was like, nope. That just add, like, what did you do? And then there's questions. These are raw files. Here's 1, 2, and 3 to start. Okay, listen to that again. And one more time. Okay, now let's listen to the next string. Ooh. Yeah. Hear that? So 6 sounds different to me, but here's an interesting thing. 1, 2, and 3, besides being muffled and further away, it doesn't have echoes. Here we have, this is a shot here, this one, this peak, oh, darn it, I don't have my thing up again. Here we go. So this here is a shot. This is an echo. Very clearly an echo, and a shot and an echo, and a shot and an echo. So this is actually critical evidence, because you hear that, there's echoes coming off. So that also allows us, again, to analyze where was this gun. But first up, we just have an absolutely different sound between the first 3. There's no echo. It's much further away. It's more muffled. It's just not in the same place at all. But these next ones, very different sound. Totally different weapons. Okay, full stop. We have 2 separate weapons. Plus, we have no echoes coming off of the first 3. And then we do have echoes coming off of the next set. And that last one, that's different. That's not the sniper shot. The sniper shot is another 10 seconds later. So I don't know what number 6 is here, but we're just going to bookmark it for now and go on. So audio analysis conducted by Nick tells us that if those next string of shots, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are coming from shooter, who we're going to call shooter 2, because shooter 1 is sending off those muffled ones. Shooter 2 is very consistent. If somebody was on the roof firing something with a 223 round, those, and here's where audio 2 is recorded from. That we've isolated exactly where the person was standing. They were walking, so there's a little movement, but they were basically right here. The echoes we have is perfectly consistent with conditions, atmospheric conditions of the day, to have bounced off of this building, because that's what you need for an echo. You need a hard, flat surface to echo off of. So that's what we got. We have an echo that perfectly lines up with somebody being up there in shooter number 2 position. Now, here's where it gets a little weirder. So what I've done, and this is, I've taken the first timeline. This is the video number 1's audio, and I've lined it up with video number 2's audio. And for the most part, we're in pretty darn good shape, right? Here you can see, so this is the supersonic crack. So that's the crack of the bullet arriving. And I've lined that up with what I did. I just shifted the timelines to line up with, this is the report of the gun. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gun plus a 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've lined up that first blast of the gun with the arrival of the bullet so that it should be consistent, because if you have the explosion, the arrival of it downstream, they ought to line up, right? The timings ought to be the same. So sure enough, shot 1, no problemo, lines up perfectly. This is an echo up top there. Here's the echo down here for shot 1. The top bullet is echoing off of whatever it's echoing up there near the stage. And this is echoing probably off of that building surface we just showed you. So shot 1, 100%, we're good to go. Shot 2, same thing, lines up perfectly. It's got an echo right here. That's that little peak right there. and it's got an echo up top. Everything lines up. Shot 3, though, remember this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one doesn't line up. This one is actually, this shot happens about 0.03 seconds earlier. There's not alignment. It should be right under this peak, but it's not, which means the shot happened 0.03 seconds. It took 0.03 seconds longer for that bullet to get downstream, right, to the microphone in front of the Trump platform there. What does that mean? Well, that means that it's somewhere between, depending on the caliber and, maybe the caliber. I don't have any bullets here. I can't guarantee anything. Depending on a lot of things, the muzzle velocity of whatever this projectile was, and things like that. That 0.03 seconds, assuming it's 2,600 feet per second, that's how fast this thing's traveling. Could be 2,500, could be 3,000. I don't know what they're using, so you have to make some guesses. But it's further away. This implies the possibility that shots 1 and 2, those are fired by crooks, but somebody about 78 to 100 feet further away took shot 3. Then shots 4 and 5 line up again perfectly, but shot 6, hey, that's off the mark again by the same amount. And, there's not quite the echoes that are happening off of shot 3. We don't see the same. There should be an echo right here. There should be an echo right here. We don't see that, not like these big echoes. So there's a chance here, I'm making a chance that there's a possibility of there were 2 weapons being fired that are different from the first one. 1, 2, 3 are from weapon 1. Weapon 2 for sure is in a different spot, but there's a possibility because of those times of weapon 3. So it could be that 1, 2, 4, 5 were taken by crooks on the roof because he heard some stuff going on, decided to take his shots, but 3 and 6 were taken by somebody else another 100 feet away. I don't know. We're going to need more professional audio analysis, but I like it when everything lines up, and everything does line up until we get to there. And then further down the timeline, things get really weird, and things aren't lining up, but we don't know who's firing down at that end of the spectrum either. So some weird stuff down there, but it doesn't line up really well enough for my taste. Okay, so hypothesis. What do we have here? Okay, here's the hypothesis. At least 2 shooters, maybe 3. Don't know. The first 3 shots, I suspect my hypothesis is they came from inside the building. All right? They were inside that, like if Crooks was on the roof, opened the window, those shots came in from down below. Why do I think that? Because that ensures that the crack boom are consistent with the Patsy on the roof. The angles are the same. The crack boom isn't off. There's nothing to analyze, right? If those first 3 shots come out from below Crooks, then it all lines up, right? And this aligns with what we have from video number 2's audio, where it's more distant, it's a muffled sound that would be more consistent with being inside. We don't have, it's also the upward slope of that bullet, right? Now that begins to line up if it's true that back victim was struck with bullet 1, and also all the lack of echoes. So everything's consistent with that hypothesis, and it's just a hypothesis. I'm just trying to, put some meats on the bones of what might have happened here. Because I know for a fact we had 2 guns. Period. Maybe 3. I could make a case for 3. I'm not as solid on that. I'm going to wait for expert analysis. But we don't need any further expert analysis to understand there were 2 weapons being fired at the stage, right? Because here's what happened. These next string of shots down here, which I'm highlighting, this is the recording from video 2. This is, video 2's, audio 2, video 2. Video 1, which is taken from the microphone right at the front where Trump is, these are sonic signatures. So these booms led to these cracks, right? These explosions of this weapon resulted in bullets making sonic booms right over the microphone down at Trump stage. So let's be clear. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wasn't like, because I can hear it already. They're like, the Beaver County Emergency Services Unit saw him and climbed up and blah, 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 blah. Really, I guess that's what it was. That's not what it was. This second weapon that was fired, leaving the echoes and that sharper crack, that was fired towards the stands. So we have 2 shooters, guaranteed, full stop. Okay. In the second group of shots, I'm positive that 1, 2, 4, and 5, pretty sure those were fired by crooks. Lines up with everything, the echoes, and the snaps recorded downrange, all that. Now, shots 3 and 6 are puzzling. Again, expert analysis will be required here, not me. I'm just a doof with audacity and some common sense. but their delayed arrival downrange suggests they were taken 78 to about 95 feet further back than Crook's position. That would be consistent with somebody being on one of those other roofs just behind him, just in case. Just in case of mission failure, I guess. I don't know. So my conclusions for today, there are at least 2 distinctly different weapons being fired, at least 2. The first 3 shots further away than the weapons that fired the next 5 to 7 shots because they're muffled. The sonic cracks tell us that everything was fired in Trump's and the audience's direction. That means they weren't taking out crooks with these shots. This means the lone shooter theory is 100% false. And I can't be the only guy who's done this analysis. And how is it possible that we even had CNN saying, experts tell us there were at least 2 weapons, probably 3. 3 with that last final sniper shot, maybe 4. So this tells us that this was a full-on operation. These are the questions that need to be asked. I fear for my safety and everybody else's safety for coming out with this stuff, because one thing we know, they don't like loose ends in these stories, but man, they bollocksed this operation up really badly. Whoever was in charge of it, probably already floating in a river. I don't know what's going to happen to them because they really messed this operation.
All right, let's stop right there. I was not planning on playing all that, but when we got into it, I just couldn't quit. I mean, that is fascinating. And I also am playing it because we need this out on as many platforms as we can, okay? So we have backups to backups to backups to backups with all of our stuff. So the chances of them, the deep state, being able to eliminate all the copies that we have, including any burned copies that we actually burn physical hard copies of and put off-site somewhere else, I'm not planning on this going anywhere. And I wanted to give Chris Martin some cover here by having another outlet pick it up, and we'll chop this thing up and send it all over social media. Now, I have followed Chris Martinson's career for years and years and years through the Financial Sense News Hour, I think is where I first heard about him. This lines up with what you were saying. Were you not on our show the other day saying you thought there might have been another shooter inside? Am I correct in remembering you maybe said that on our show or somewhere else, Michael?
I probably said it on your show. I said it on many shows, and I published it on Twitter because I thought that would make sense based on just things. I just thought, I bet they fired from inside that building. By the way, Dr. Chris Martinson, he's doing great on this. I took him down to the Darien Gap. I spent about a week with him.
Oh, so you know him. You know him.
I took him to the Darien Gap. He was great down there. He likes the jungle, too. I took him and Brett Weinstein, Ann Vandersteel, and I took him.
Okay, good.
So I follow his work very closely. And he's very detail oriented, very factually oriented. So he's alerted on that. It makes sense for me that they would have fired from inside the building, and it would have been easy to muffle it. And they would at least change.
Well, they've already come out and told us
signature.
They've already come out and told us that there was another sniper team inside the building. Remember that?
Yeah, they told us that post facto. Yeah, and this was a stage. I mean, they could assassinate Trump all over the place at these wrestling events and everything else. But those aren't the sort of stage that this was. This was a literal stage in broad daylight where you can have all your cameras out there. The New York Times guy and the Associated Press and all those guys are down there in the pit. The Washington Post.
So what they were looking for was a clean, orchestrated, planned assassination and the one shooter scenario, so it was all just clean and neat. They weren't counting on Trump to turn his head, and yet were they not planning on people doing audio analysis like Chris just did and Mike Adams is doing?
These people are sophisticated. They knew that was going to come. And actually, there's some history around that area right there that I'm not going to say much now because I don't know enough about it to start talking. But that area is mysterious to begin with. They had whoever set this up had plenty of time to set that stage.
And let me just say, I won't go into details, but you're talking about who owns some of the buildings and the holding companies and what? Is that what you're referring to?
Right, and apparently that area has been used before for sort of film sets, like maybe the Deer Hunter and that sort of thing. So, in other words, they had time to prepare that area. They had time. They owned that terrain, right? So,
you're even saying they would have had time to even walk through, practice, look, measure, and know.
Oh, just do it perfectly. I mean, people that can make Hollywood movies and that sort of thing, they can do a lot of, deception and also, deflection. And I mean, they could have done this any way that they wanted because they had time and they owned the area.
So you agree, without a doubt, there was 2 shooters?
I'm not going to say anything at this point, but it looks to me like there was 2 shooters. That's strong.
So Chris is being adamant. Yeah. Chris is being adamant about 2 shooters, without a doubt.
I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right. And that makes sense. Often, by the way.
So why did they miss? Why? I mean, you've been in war, you've been in battle, you've been shot at. How did they miss only because Trump turned his head? Why could they not hit him? Why were they not successful in hitting him when he dotted his ear and was going down? Well,
I'll cause everybody to hate me when I say my theory. You know what I mean? And I'll damage my credibility yet again, as I often do.
Well, I'm not going to push you into saying anything then.
But I'll say it. But I mean, I've been in a lot of sniping incidences, coming and going, like a lot, right? Yeah, I've got photos of me right here next to the sniper, shoulder to shoulder, almost looking through his scope, right when he took the shot at a Taliban guy. You know what I mean? I've been in the middle of this so much, in different, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever. And so any competent snipers would have killed the president for sure, right? And I don't know. To me, it looks like kayfabe. I know that'll make everybody hate me, but I'm just going with my gut instinct.
What does that mean? What's that word mean?
Kayfabe is a wrestling term that I got it from Eric Weinstein, actually, the mathematician, and it's a wrestling term. Trump's into wrestling, right? And that's where it's a big show. It's a huge show. Enjoy the show, right?
But you're not saying it was done on Trump's side or from Trump's people.
I'm saying it's higher than that. Is what it looks like to me. It's not Trump versus Biden. It's something higher. Like I said, saying things like this will make people hate you, And this is the reason, I don't go on a lot of shows, right? Because I'm just going to follow the evidence wherever it appears. And in my experience, a competent sniper, he would be dead for sure. And if there were multiple rifles, if there were 3 rifles firing, why didn't one of them get him, right? I mean, that's kind of mysterious, isn't it?
Well, the whole thing is mysterious, but could it be that, do we not know that someone walked into the room? And assuming there's shooters down on the bottom, did someone walk in? Did someone coming around that building come in there and distract them, and they were distracted and thus didn't do the job? I mean, there's a lot of factors we don't know, because we do know that some of the cops were starting to explore that area around there.
It's possible. Let me tell you what. One time, I'll tell you one specific sniper mission.
Give me a few more minutes, Logan, if you don't mind. I'm gonna ask my producer Logan for a couple more minutes tonight. Keep going.
Okay. One specific sniper mission I was on in Mosul, Iraq, right in 2005. So we were going to do this sniper hit, or not we. I'm just this. I'm just the camera. And so we were going to hit this Al Qaeda leader, right? And so I was with the Deuce 4, the 124th Infantry Regiment, up in Mosul. And mid-2005. So knew where he was at, that sort of thing. And so I was with the sniper team, Walt Gaia and some of the others. And I think we were practicing, I was just photographing. They were practicing with 3 rifles so that they could all fire simultaneously. So 1, 2, bam. And all 3 would fire at the same time because they did not want to miss the target, right? So they kept practicing until they could definitely get, everybody hits the target, bam. So all 3 firing at the same time, right? So, I mean, and all 3, and we killed the guy too. I said, I just was there with the camera. But this sorts of stuff is normal sniper teams, often not just a sniper team, spotter and shooter. Often it's like 2 snipers hitting the same target, 3 snipers hitting targets around him or whatever, and they can do it simultaneously. With little effort. Seriously, as much combat experience as I've had, which is a lot, if they had serious snipers out against him, which they would have had, he would have been filled full of holes. So it's just mysterious.
The whole thing is. Well, this has just been announced. President Trump is going to hold a rally July 24th, Wednesday, in Charlotte, North Carolina. But this time, Michael, it looks like it's going to be inside of a coliseum. Here we go. Here it is. There are the details. So I don't think you're going to be seeing any more outside rallies for a while.
Especially when he could get hit right in the chest with a drone. There's a lot of ways to do a real assassination, and especially these days with these high-speed drones and that sort of thing.
And let me have you bring that up real quick, because we showed the video a year and a half or so ago of IRGC targeting President Trump. It looked like President Trump, the red golf cap, or a baseball cap, a white shirt. They showed what looked like Mar-a-Lago. We've played the IRGC video several times. They have a device on the ground that paints him, and then the drone comes in. Now we have last night, while the RNC is going on, a drone gets through. IDF says it probably came in from Yemen, and they strike real close to the consulate, U.S. consulate in Tel Aviv, and hit an apartment building. I find that very interesting. Two things. Number one, a drone attack while the RNC is going on, and it gets through the IDF Iron Dome. They're researching, according to the IDF, how that happened. So we are concerned because we have seen IRGC videos, what appear to be showing multiple Islamic Revolutionary Guard guys releasing large drones in a desert area, maybe the Southwest, maybe down in Mexico by the U.S. border, drones into the U.S. Not to mention all the drones they could actually physically get into the U.S. with all these aircraft cargo containers that are not scanned. So you're dead on with the idea of the drones, because they seem to have been warning us and telling us they're going to come after with drones. One of the videos we played, by the way, I wish we could find it again, Logan, if you can maybe find it in our archive real quick, the drone, IRGC drone, because one of the drones we showed, which IRGC put out, which shows them lifting these drones up, is a drone coming in and exploding into a crowd of people. They were cardboard cutouts on the ground, and they exploded, and then you see the shrapnel hitting all the people as well on the ground. So they've already released a year and a half ago, whatever it was we played that night on Brandhouse Live, the IRGC telling us, hey, we have drones. We can strike outdoor crowds. That's number one. Number two, we have this morning we wake up, we find out we have a global threat against the infrastructure. Banks having a problem, broadcast outlets having a problem, hospitals having a problem, 911 having a problem. We've got flights having an issue. Klaus Schwab warned us in 2020 that an event bigger than COVID, COVID looked like a small issue compared to the cyber attack that's coming on the U.S. Is that today telling us, be careful, there may not even be an election, as some are talking about, if the grid goes down? I don't know if you've seen the video by Vivek Ramaswamy. We played that, and that was from back in December. He's saying this. Look at this right here from Vivek Ramaswamy. Listen to what he said.
Social media, when he said that they're not going to, they're going to take Biden out, and it's not going to be a nuisance.
This is a longer story. It takes a dark turn, but I think I have a good sense of what's going to happen here.
Okay.
They're leading into a trap. They're not going to let Trump get anywhere near the White House. They're not going to let him.
What about?
So the goal is, have him be the nominee, and by hell or high water, one way or other, they're not going to have him. They're not going to let him.
What about the other two, though?
It's not them.
Who is it?
It's within our own party.
Okay. It's within our own party?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Hey, look at the people who voted to keep Trump off the ballot. Who are they putting up? Lawsuits to keep him off the ballot. Larry Fink to Reid Hoffman. Who are they propping up? So it's a game. And I'm in this to make sure that doesn't happen. But they want it to be a two-horse race, eliminate him, put up actually the Trojan horse within the Republican Party that keeps the war machine humming and keeps the restrictions on speech and the censorship agenda. Get it done. Who needs Democrats when you can get it done through the Republican Party?
Okay.
So you do the math. Okay. You do the math on that. That's what's coming.
Wow. What do you make of that, Michael?
Yeah, Biden. No, he's been used up. He's obviously is just a meat puppet for the globalists, and they're done with him, and so he'll be discarded.
And then he's saying, though, that this is coming from the Republican Party. He mentions Larry Fink and someone else and says it's coming as a Trojan horse from the Republican Party so they can keep the war machine going and the censorship going. I don't know if he's referencing, the people backing Nikki Haley, what he's referencing. But again, you talk about this is going up above us. This is going on up above, even in the so-called Republican circles. I mean, wowza. That's number one. But notice again, we've got a drone strike, and yet we've got IRGC threatening to use drones going after crowds. We've got, in the drone strike in Tel Aviv last night, we've got issues with the global computer systems today, and yet we got Klaus Schwab warning about a major event. So this, as we go from the summer into the fall, I'm worried about terrorist attacks in the U.S., drones in the U.S., and cyber problems with our infrastructure, maybe to disrupt the fall election or who knows what. But I just find I don't find this all just coincidental. What's happened in the less than 24 hours since last night? Do you?
Not at all. I mean, and we have no border. As you know, I spend a lot of time on the borders, or what used to be the borders, and they just don't exist. I mean, and the U.S. government is flying invaders, let's call them what they are, into the United States 24/7. The United States government is doing this, right? And so is physically doing it in jets. I mean, flying them to Atlanta and Florida and everywhere, right? They're destroying the United States.
Michael Yon, war correspondent, you want to promote plug your X account and anything else you want to plug?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm just on X every day, Michael_Yon at Yankee Oscar November, and I'm on Substack, same name. And I'm on X every single day. And I just put one thing up yesterday, and it had about 13 million hits on or 2 days ago now, yeah. And then it stopped suddenly. Maybe X got tired of it going up to the roof because it wasn't polite. It wasn't polite. It was about the shutter speed of that photographer used and that sort of thing. And now I see there's a lot of pushback for that, But the professional photographers have moved in and supported what I said. That 1/8,000th of a second for the New York Times photographer Doug Mills is just a little off. I mean, like Brett Weinstein, he's like, why would he choose 1/8,000th of a second? Exactly.